Welcome to my video, and thank you once again for being here watching my videos. I like to thank all my subscribers. I like to thank your time to watch my videos and learn about what's going on around the world. Thank you one more time. Let's begin.
To the floor, President Nicolas Maduro hopes cashing in his country's gold reserves instead might be a better bet. But the UK's High Court has thrown a spanner in the works. A judge denying Maduro access to the gold held in the Bank of England vaults, giving it instead to Venezuela's opposition. The UK High Court ruling on Thursday said Her Majesty's government does recognise Mr Guaido in the capacity of the constitutional interim president of Venezuela, and it must follow, does not recognise Mr Maduro as the constitutional interim president of Venezuela. The decision concludes a legal battle between the Maduro-led
The one thing I have a problem there is that Maduro was not an interim president, but an elected president, and he constitutional elected president. Well, let's begin with today's topic. It's about a 31-ton of gold dispute between Britain and Venezuela. This Thursday, this coming up Thursday, this week, the due date set by the London Court of Appeal expires, analyzing the gold intervened from the Central Bank of Venezuela against the British Supreme Court initial ruling. The British government does not recognize the Venezuelan government as the owner of 31 tons of gold. They should not be the owner, actually handler of the 31 tons of gold, because the owners are the civilians living in Venezuela. So last July, British Justice issued a ruling. It ruled that the United Kingdom unmistakably recognized the opposition Juan Guaido as authorized to handle the Venezuelan gold, tarnish the legitimate and constitutional President Nicolas Maduro. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, the lady with the glasses on my video, classified the British government's opinion as absurd. At the same time, she denounced a plot on the part of opposition circles against Nicolas Maduro governments and their interest in keeping the gold resources, which convert into dollars figures $1,000 million. The Venezuelan government denounced that the so-called sanctions hinders the obtaining of food, medicines necessary to fight the pandemic. The sanctions are a crime against humanity. British Court of Justice will have to define if the United Kingdom finally recognizes Juan Guaido and his fraudulent campaign and return the gold to the Venezuelan public. In this picture that you're seeing right now on Ripley, that's the first time. These are the first 65 tons of medicine that China brought to Venezuela, and this is why I'm saying $1 billion, while the video says $2 billion. That video was before the humanitarian help came to Venezuela. Juan Guaido circle sees the retention of as a triumph. It's still the legitimate Chavista government of Nicolas Maduro denounces this as an attempt against the rights of the people of Venezuela. At the bottom of all this, there is criticism to the political decision of England. The spokesman of Venezuela warned of traits of colonialism on the part of European nations. Venezuela had brought home a large number in tons of gold that were in the Bank of England. When Venezuela decided to use the gold it had brought back to the nation's soil, it was withheld. That debate now went to the economic courts of England. This is a political trial, waiting to see what is going to turn out, whether the courts will adhere to international law as alleged by Venezuela. During the 20th century, the United States had Venezuela as an economic space under its control. When Commander Hugo Chavez Frias was elected as president of Venezuela, Venezuela began to take on an essential role in energy integration and politics with neighboring countries. This function the US desperately wants to annul. England is an accomplice of the United States in the end, even if it's not directly perceived that way. It would be a usurpation of that international order in Latin America as in other commitments continents. Once once victim of colonialism, significant countries like the United States and the United Kingdom would take their resources and use them to benefit their economy. It would appear colonialism has not yet died in Venezuela or in other nations. Those nations known as First Nation use smaller nations' resources to stay afloat uh, against crisis. These countries with more robust economic power use blockades and sanctions to force countries with smaller economies influence into their economic circle to eventually take over their industries. After World War II, nations with little military power were talked into keeping their gold in the U.S. reserves or somewhere in Europe. Today's members of the UN, today unwilling to lose the grip they once had around the world, colonialist governments use sanctions and blockades. For example, Venezuela. Their sanctions began in 2007. The most extreme sanctions started in 2013. Venezuela has around 120 plus sanctions and blockades, even if they are unilaterally imposed by the US. A good part by private companies, others by state public companies. Mm? All are oriented to reduce the economic capacities of Venezuela to minimize Venezuela's income. The US has taken Venezuelan assets in external countries such as, let's talk about Citgo, a refinery of Venezuela located in the United States, one in Boston, another one in Corpus Christi, another one in Lake Charles, and another one in Lemont, southeast of Chicago. These measures lack international legality, as these sanctions and blockades come from Washington. Nation members in organizations such as United Nations have turned a blind eye to those sanctions and blockades and not condemned these measures. When the US paid for the petroleum received from Venezuela, Venezuela would have an income of $44 billion. Hmm? That's a lot of money they're not getting anymore. UN and OAS organizations of American states have also done little or nothing at all about the many indigenous social leaders assassinated in Colombia by the government military. So we're coming to an end here, and I just want to let you guys know that this is very important because on Thursday we're going to find out what is going to happen with this gold. Is Venezuela going to be able to use it for medical, to help people with the COVID-19, for food, electricity? We'll have to see. Well, thanks my friends for watching this video, and don't forget to help someone because you might be the only one who does. Ciao!